What's up, everybody? Excited to be here. Really excited to get on the grass with these guys tomorrow. In some capacity, just a couple house cleaning items. It's been really fun since coming here when Josh first extended the offer to get close with Brad and his crew in basketball, and then Coach Green is actually my neighbor, and to watch the women's program do what it did this past year. And then I saw that there's a social media tweet that talked about one of 14 schools to be postseason football, postseason men's and women's basketball to the tournament. And I was looking at that list, and not bragging on Josh because he's here, but that popped in my head. I'm like, I'll bet you there are very few sitting ADs that have hired all three of those coaches at the same time. And of those 14 schools, we're the only school that our current AD hired all three of us. So it's kind of really just a cool time. Obviously, we can do better in postseason, and I know that a lot has been done about that, but kind of just a great point in our program for the athletic department, everything in general, kind of a tie into that as well. Haven't had a chance to talk about the Family First, the announcement of the ticket pricing and the things that have gone into that. Obviously, to play in front of this environment where it got a little bit last year and hopefully can take it to a different level. It's exciting to see the response from that, and for me and my family, Jen and I are working through the process. We're going to definitely join in that strategy as well in the near future. Have a variety of different things to be excited for us from the spring ball. We have about 20 new players that we've added that will be joining us for the first time, that offense, defense, and in the kicking game. I'm excited to see that. 4 new coaches, 4 of my 10 to change that. Couldn't be more impressed with those 4 guys since we've hired them, the effect that they've had on the team, the way the players have said things to me about that is just really kind of been a new source of juice, just really exciting. I know for Aaron, obviously, taking over the first time as a coordinator, but Charlie and Antonio on offense have been just lights out for what they brought to the table and the way they've kind of fit in. And then Robbie and Thad on offense, it's just kind of brought a different dynamic. I know Barry's excited about that as well. So a couple of position changes are going to announce. You'll see them tomorrow if you pop out there. But Miles Scott, I asked him, he accepted, and he's moving to DB for the spring, see where that goes and see where it's at, and kind of go from that point forward. Fidanzo has been awesome for us on special teams, just kind of at the running back position. I saw him being a little bit buried, asked him if he'd try safety. He jumped at the opportunity, so going to see what he brings there. Dylan Davis, we're going to switch the defensive line, and then a couple non-scholarship players who've done a great job in the program. Ben Schultz, kind of a local guy who's been an outside linebacker, going to switch him to tight end, kind of that Mark Case type feel, a guy that just tries hard, big, size, rangy, athletic. See where he goes. Ben Clausen, we acted right at the end of the summer, going into fall camp, was literally one of our last roster additions. We're moving him to defensive back, and then a familiar name that a lot of you will remember, Kalen Villanueva, who went away for a year, has come back as a non-scholarship player, contacted us about the possibility of joining our program, so he's earning his way there, and looks good at linebacker. A couple subtractions, 2 different reasons. Lucas Altos, who's been a walk-on in our program, unfortunately medically will retire. I know it was a very hard decision for him, but a kid that's been very successful since he's been here and be successful in life. And then Shaman Cooper grabbed me about 2 weeks ago, had gone through our entire program, and he's going to put himself in a position to make a transfer out of here, and didn't want to go through spring ball. Has kind of got an idea on some teams. Anytime these situations pop up, I just kind of express to those kids, especially in Shaman's situation, anything I can do to help facilitate where you want to go, how you want to do it, please let me know. So excited for him and his new opportunity. Just a couple other cleanup items. We had the NFL Pro Day here. Our guys, I talked after the initial testing, but just the response that I got from NFL people after the combine for the guys that went to that, and then the guys that were here. I think our guys really helped themselves, not just on the field, but the way they carry themselves, the way they handle themselves. The interviews they were in were really pretty good. So tomorrow we'll start our first practice. I think Bret has informed you guys we'll invite you out for the first segment. I think we'll be indoors, just looking at the weather forecast for what it is tomorrow. We'll start really early. We're actually on the field at 7 o'clock, so just not a lot of time to warm up in the morning. So we'll be in the indoors for tomorrow. Hopefully get out there on on Thursday and Saturday. But tomorrow will be the NCAA changed the rule and allowed us to go out in helmets and spiders, which is a kind of a padded shoulder pad, but not quite shoulder pads, that I think makes a lot of sense. So excited to do that, so we can get that work in on Tuesday and Thursday. We'll start in the red area as our basic way of install that we've always done. But you guys will see some of the individual time guys at the positions, and then I know you want to stay for the scheme part of it, but we'll usher you out before that part happens. Just with new quarterbacks, new positions, new coaches. You'll see the individual time and some special team stuff, but other than that, it'll be a pretty basic first down practice for Tuesday, second down on Thursday, and then we'll introduce third down on Saturday. So we kind of progress our teaching that way. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Very successful season defensively last year. What can we expect with Aaron Henry as the coordinator, and will there be any significant schematic or philosophical changes?
Yeah, I think even for where we year one to year two, we stayed a lot within the framework of what schematically we were, but we adjusted to our personnel. We had certain players get better in a short fashion. So I think from year two to year three, even though there's obviously a change in coordinator tile, I think what we do, a lot of will stay in place, but we'll adapt to our personnel. Last year, we probably were a back-end heavy experienced defense going into the season, knew the strengths of those players, and then had the emergence of Johnny and Keith and Tariq and so the outside linebacker room, I think, might be one of the most talented groups that I've had as a head coach in that position, right? So those will be some of our better players on defense. So I think we'll be a little bit reversed this year, maybe a little bit more talent-driven on the front end and inexperienced in the back end, but I think both will play well. And Aaron became the coordinator because his name is Aaron Henry, right? And what he's done in my eyes and what he's done to accomplish it. Terrence Jamison will be also a big asset for us up front. And I think the addition of Charlie and Antonio, it's been fun to see those guys add there as well. So I'm not really worried about what it looks like right now. I'd like us to play good, basic, solid, fundamental football and get good at the techniques.
Where are you guys at? So they're going to be available early?
Yeah, there'll be a couple guys that have been some postseason injuries. So Bryce Barnes won't be out there. Zy Chrysler won't be out there. We'll lose those guys for pretty much the duration of spring ball. Matt Bailey, unfortunately, had an injury during probably week 6 or 7 of winter conditioning, so he won't be with us this spring, but he'll be back with us as soon as we start the summer. A couple other guys with some soft tissue thing they're just working through right now, but those are the major guys who won't be there.
Right, when you bring in Luke Altmaier, obviously he's a different personality type than Tommy was and a different dynamic, but when you go into the portal and you go get a guy like that, how much do you guys communicate or talk and have meetings about whether or not this guy's going to fit in our building and what his dynamic brings? Every
guy's a little bit different, and I think anytime you're in this portal world, that's probably the biggest obstacle to overcome. You can watch film. Obviously, Luke had high school film, he had college film. Ironically, I have a few contacts in the Ole Miss building, that I reached out to and just overwhelmingly positive about who he was as a person and what he brings. And then I think even on his visit, you could see it was very, very clear. He's a guy with, a high character, learns the game very, very well, takes to it in short fashion. And then on the flip side of it, I think he builds relationships on a little bit different. Tommy came in with this big bravado, Jersey personality and what it is, and Luke's a little bit more reserved, subtle, but I distinctly remember maybe week 2 or 3, I was just calling to check in. I was out on the road recruiting heavily, and I checked in I was actually calling Casey Washington, and he was at lunch with Luke Altmaier, right? And it just kind of signified to me, what he was doing and how he was doing it. I would say John Paddock, also another transfer quarterback who came in, who's got strong Illinois ties. He just brings in a big personality. He's played a lot of college football. Anytime you bring in a transfer, you're always going to have those concerns. You're never going to bat 1,000, but I think we've been batting pretty good.
Pretty good, obviously. There's a lot of momentum with your program right now. What's the key to sustain that through the spring without another game?
So I had a team meeting Sunday night. Everybody kind of went their own separate ways during spring break. I went and visited Mickey and Minnie for a couple days with my daughters, right? Everybody else kind of went across the country, did what they did, but we came back on Sunday night, and I said, in my 15th year now as a head coach, you just have certain feelings going into spring ball, right? And I just think I think we have 10 guys that are returning as all-conference players, the most in our division. You get the excitement of new quarterback. Whoever it's going to be is going to be a new quarterback, and I really feel good about the guys we added. Also, Donovan Leary, who has been very exciting to watch over the last year with him. We got a lot of really good players coming back. I think we'll add some good players. There is excitement because, for the first time went to a January 1st bowl game. But for me as a head coach, I try to show and be as upbeat as possible, but I'm also not oblivious to the fact of, the 5 losses. 4 of those 5 came at the end. All very tight games. All the games we lost were by 1 score. So even today, at 4:30, my team meeting is a lot about just football IQ and awareness. And I've actually developed a whole a sequence that will, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons, I have the entire roster for like the first 20 minutes to go through football IQ. Something that I love to do, and the feedback from them has been overly positive. So it's year 3. It should be going in the right direction. I think it is, but we want to try to maximize the best we can.
Along the lines of momentum, this is the first time you're going to be able to go from season to bowl prep, bowl game, winter workouts into spring. What kind of difference have you seen already, and what might that mean this spring?
Yeah, so we've stayed pretty true to who we are. We're a development type program in the way that we do things. So, for instance, when we come back from winter break, we always do an 8-week training cycle that we're pretty unique. I would say there's not a lot of schools that do that. We probably had the most gains physically during that segment of time on our calendar, and I make a big deal about it. We'll get into week 4 and say, hey, we're halfway through those 8 weeks. Where are we at, right? So there's a big emphasis on development, and you'll see it. I mean, there's guys that are going to, look a lot better than they have. Some of them got a little bigger, some got a little bit smaller. I think overall the work ethic. But one comment came out to me. I check in with Tank every day, right? Like whether I was here or I was on the road, whatever it was. Coach Tank and I talk every day about how the workouts went. We'd obviously get email feedback every day academically, but I wanted to hear it from my strength coach. And we had a day where we did competitive balance, right? So we had an offensive player versus a defensive player at their respective position, So try to have someone that matches a similar skill set and have them compete in 6 stations. And we've filmed those drills, right? And they can watch them. We watch them really so that they can critique themselves and, hey, you need to come out of this break better. It's very football-specific type things, but you can't have a football. There's a lot of NCAA rules around it. But our guys figured out that they could challenge whether or not they were the winner or the loser, right? So there was a recording on every drill, whether you won or lost the match, and these would get highly competitive, And there were guys that were coming in and saying, hey, I actually won this rep, right? And there were several guys that were contesting their scores. And Tank said to me, he goes, it's not so much, he goes, our guys want to win and they love to win. But he goes, but unlike any other time since we've been here, these guys hate to lose. And I know for me as a head coach, the teams I've been involved with, when we got here, there was this grassroots movement to just teach them how to win, right? You got to, before you can win, you got to stop from losing, that whole spiel. And then, last year we began to win, and then you got to be able to maintain that winning edge and keep that competitive fire and maintain it in the most difficult moments, how to win close games. And now we're into our 3rd year. Hopefully the expectation is, where we're going to end up. But there's got to be that certain level of, I'm just not going to lose this moment. I'm not going to have failure in this moment. And I'm a good player that has got to step up, or I'm a younger player that's got to step in, whatever it is. That certain element of your refusal to have failure is going to go a long way.
What are the measuring, or what types of measuring sticks at least do you have for spring ball, given that you don't win or lose any games?
Yeah, well, when it comes time, right, so I do a Thursday night spring game for one reason. I want to try to make it as competitive as I can and have it be a game day feel, right? Like we'll get a lot of morning and afternoon practices, but I want to have that night game experience. So there's that measurement there, but also just what we'll do is we'll do a lot of highly competitive, good against good individual drills. I think because of the caliber of players that some of our guys that are returning, like last year, I didn't let Chase Brown get tackled until the opener, right? Like I didn't need to see Chase Brown, make somebody miss in the spring practice or the spring game or fall contest. So once you're a certain level of player in our program, we'll maintenance you in that regard. So there'll be, Johnny and Keith and Isaiah Adams, Julian Pearl, we're going to want to push them and make them go high levels, but they've already shown that they can play at a pretty good, now they got to get better at their weaknesses, right? I always tell our guys we're all Superman, right? We all think we're all this and all that, but kryptonite brings us all down. So I want to, each one of those guys will attack their weaknesses more than anything, so that's an area we can usually make a big jump in.
You guys retain a lot on your lines, respectively. Just for we need to do in this conference philosophically, what you believe in this program? What does that mean for you guys to have that?
It means a lot. I give Josh credit and all of our people involved with NIL, you know, as a true measuring stick. Like when literally as soon as I got done with the bowl game, I knew that we had the chance of really 2 offensive and 2 defensive linemen that could possibly go to the NFL, right? And all the things that began to accumulate for our guys. We've got 5 or 6 guys that are doing pretty good in the NIL world that could have left us, right? But that was a big step, because now if you have the cornerstone of an O-line and a D-line, that's what my program has always been kind of a catalyst to, is that's really a good foundation of where we're at. And then you throw a guy like Isaiah, I think, who can bring a lot of different skills and retain him. Now you got a great competition at the running back position. I think Tip Ryman at tight end could really step into being one of the best in the league. On the defense side of the ball, I thought Tariq Barnes and some of our young backers really started to play well. I'm very, very excited. I said it earlier. I think the outside linebacker room between Seth, Zeke, now you throw in a Gabe Ackus, you throw in a Jared Beatty, you throw in an Alec Bryant. That's 5 or 6 guys that, from an outside linebacker room, that looks like they're supposed to look and they act like they're supposed to act. And then in the back end, the way our guys, with the injuries a year ago, as frustrating as it was, right, when we lost Taz and when we lost guys and when we didn't have everybody at the bowl game, those young players got a lot of really valuable experience I think should bode well for us.
How is Zeke? Will he be available in any capacity?
Yeah, Zeke is doing extremely well. He just won't be available in spring ball, but every indication when we come back in the beginning of June, Zeke will be full go by then.
With the turnover you had on the staff, does that make spring ball that much more important in just getting to know your roster and what kids can help you next fall?
For those guys, for sure. Like I tell so all 4 of those hires, when I brought them in, like I would, hey, here's your group, but I don't paint a picture. I don't say, hey, this guy can do this guy. I want them to develop those relationships. Kind of a cool moment for me. I was one of the last periods or last days before spring break happened. And we have a little indie period at the end of practice, and I think it was Seth, Gabe Ackus, Alec Bryant, and Beatty, and they walked over, and I literally, each kid shook my hand and said, "Coach, thanks for bringing in Coach Bolin. He's really been awesome to work with." Like, I've never had a group do that before, right? And just kind of made an impression on me about, like, sometimes turnover or things that, you know, from the outside world, if you and I wasn't in a big hurry. I didn't go after resumes. I went after great fits, and I think hopefully that's the result we can have.
You got 3 new coaches in your division. Just when do you start diving into that? Is that
Yeah.
down the road?
No, it's a great question. You know, obviously divisional play for me, you know, when the announcement that USC and UCLA were coming to the league, what I did know is that was probably going to preserve the league through 2024, the way that I laid it out, because I kind of went into the beginning of 2023 thinking that may be the last time that we have the East-West, right? But I knew once they weren't coming into 24, that was probably going to where we're going to land. You know, I obviously have competed against Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Purdue against their old staff. So to bring in this new one, you kind of know their personnel somewhat a little bit better than you know their coaches. Purdue, obviously, being the whole Ryan story and the coaches that are there, but Wisconsin, you know, I've known Coach Fickle for a long time on a personal level, just knowing common people, common friends, respected what he's done so much at Cincinnati, and then never really had the same chance with the new Nebraska staff, but obviously respect what he's been able to accomplish when he was at Baylor, and know he's a good football coach. So we'll kind of dive into that, and you know, so we have these rematch games, which is usually means you have a rematch against coaches. Now it'll be a rematch versus personnel with their new coaches added. So because most of those games are on the back end of or mid to back end of the game, we won't really dive into the X and O's till we see what they're going to run. All right, but next year we jump out of the gate with Toledo, who's obviously a championship team, a MAC team that's very, very talented. We come up right after that with KU, and Coach Leipold and I have been very good associates from the time he was at Whitewater, when I was at Wisconsin. We built a relationship, have tremendous respect for him and his program, and then we, of course, have Penn State come to town. So, you know, 3 of our first 4, and then obviously FAU is a new coaching staff in addition to being a new opponent. So our first 4, we'll concentrate a lot on them during a little bit of spring, and then in June we'll make scouting reports and work on them in advance.
But Barry said something interesting, which is I've never seen Josh McCray fully healthy since I've been here. As somebody who has seen him fully healthy and perform well, Since you've been here, I mean, is there an excitement to what he could possibly provide this spring?
I would say that, going into last fall, I was probably more excited about Josh McCray than I ever have, and I've been excited about him since he got here. He's changed his body, his demeanor, his just his overall maturity in everything that he's done. Josh has been impressive to me. Just, Indiana game, gets a hyperextension, literally works his tail off, comes back probably a week or two earlier than what we were thinking, gets the sideline tackle right away, and then right before the bowl game, had prepared himself, and obviously was really one healthy game the entire year, right? And I give him a lot of credit. Him and Coach Ward have built a good relationship already. I know he's excited. I think him and Reggie, obviously Jordan Anderson and Aiden Lawfrey are back, and then I'm as far as just watching these true freshmen hit campus. Caden Fagan is a very impressive young man. So those 5 guys, competition brings the best out of people, but I think Josh and Reggie both have really demonstrated to our staff about the step that they are ready to hopefully take.
Finish up with Bob after this one.
To get more out of the pass rush, what is it specifically about Charlie that you think he can unlock?
I just like Charlie's work experience. I had coached a couple guys in the NFL that he was working with, and they had reached out to me when they found out I was having an interest. Charlie's background, I come from the same background he did defensively. He came out of the Norm Parker coaching tree as a defensive coach, and then the thing that kind of jumped or triggered my interest, Terrence Jameson, who didn't know any of the other connections, had watched him coach when Charlie was down at FAU. He watched him coach with the Dolphins, and then he led a clinic and talked about teaching progression. He struck up a relationship with Charlie at that time that kind of developed over the last several years. So all these little crosshairs factors got us into this point, and then the people I knew in the NFL that knew him, we didn't know each other directly, but had a lot of really good things to talk about him and his skill set and the way players responded to him. Obviously, worked with a couple guys I'd coached both in high school and college. So it was just a lot of little key ingredients. And then once I got around him, it wasn't just a one phone call, one interview done. He had opportunity to stay there with Arizona. He was still under contract. Had never been in college football as an assistant. His family means a lot to him, which really means a lot to me, right? I got 3 baby girls too, so he's a girl dad. So there's just all these little things that kind of drew him. And being from Illinois, he literally will plug and play right into Kevin's recruiting area. And Kevin was an excellent football coach for us and did a lot of great things. So to replace him, I knew that I was going to have to do somebody good in that room, and I think hopefully we're able to do that.
Coach,
The bull practice, they got,
Yeah.
you're missing some key guys on defense. How much did that help the younger guys get ready, and how much do you think you'll see out of those guys coming?
It probably helped us in 3 ways. I told us to our staff, right? First, they learned how to game plan, right? So they learned a preparation process to get to where we are. Preparing for a bowl game is not an easy deal, right? It's so long from your last game, holding their interest, balancing the idea of what a bowl game is and the reward of it. Just a lot of key things went in it. So those young DBs, I think that was big. They were also experiencing for the first time Aaron as a play caller, right? So he was their corners coach. He worked with the safeties. We actually were able to sneak Antonio in there the last week, so they got a little bit of a first exposure to Antonio, which was absolutely awesome for both those two to have that perspective moving forward. And probably the biggest reward overall was just they were going against a really challenging offense in Mississippi State. So they learned a lot of pre-snap things that they had to figure out. But you can tell everybody what you want before the ball is snapped, but it's how you react after the ball is snapped. And now they've got live rep competition. I think Xavier Scott, Tyler Strain, T. Strain has really made a huge jump in the last year. Matt Bailey made a big jump. So I think there's some beginning rewards that you actually began to see this spring or this winter in our drill work, and very excited to see now when we come into this next 5 weeks. Thank you.